did I get attracted to the Baha'i Faith, given my experiences with race? Because, I suppose I could have gone a couple of ways, right? I could have become extremely angry and spent my life lashing out. I could have become some type of black separatist, perhaps, who just believed that the white man was the devil. I had spent a small amount of time in the Nation of Islam growing up. My father was very inspired by Malcolm X. I spent a lot of days wearing bow ties and suits and having bean pies in the mosque. So I could have easily gone that direction. But there was something in me, and maybe it's about being a creative person, I don't know. Creatives have a tendency to be a little bit bohemian, a little bit open-minded. I could see the hypocrisy in some of the systems. When I began college at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, I went on a deep spiritual journey. And because I was open to the possibility of truth being in coming from a variety of different sources, I read a lot of different books. I read the Tao Te Ching, I read some of the Buddhist texts, I read some of the Hindu texts, I read the New Testament, the Old Testament, and I got introduced. I was seeing a young woman at Spelman College, who's a very amazing actress, wonderful person, who was not a Baha'i. At the time, believe it or not, I thought I was going to be a priest. The Episcopalian kind, the kind that can get married, because that was a prerequisite for me. I needed to be able to get married. So I was starting on this path, and the young woman who I was seeing knew a woman here in Atlanta, a woman by the name of Jamila Kennedy, who's a stalwart Baha'i here in the Atlanta Baha'i community, who's been around for years. Everybody in the Baha'i community knows Jamila, wonderful soul. And she went to Jamila one day. I didn't know this until much later. She said, I'm seeing this guy. I want you to meet him. I want to hear your opinion of him. He says he wants to be a priest, but he's not no priest. But I think he might like the Baha'i Faith. I had never heard of the Baha'i Faith, had never heard of Baha'u'llah, had the hardest time wrapping my tongue around the proper pronunciation of Baha'u'llah's name. It was hard for me. And also, I think I was a bit prideful and arrogant. I assumed that if I hadn't heard about it, it must not exist. So I met Jamila. Jamila gave me a prayer book from the Baha'i writings, and I read the prayers, and I could not deny that the prayers were beautiful. And then I was also intrigued by this teaching about the oneness of mankind and the importance of that principle being the core principle of the faith. And I said, that's interesting. But I wanted to see if the community reflected that. And I started to have interactions with the Baha'i community, and it was very diverse. I said, wow, this is interesting. But there's always that question, is this sincere, or is this an affectation? Is it an act? Is this kind of cross-cultural engagement pure in a way? And I was impressed. I saw people having conversations that seemed very sincere, very unself-conscious, if you will. I gradually became more and more in love with the faith, and eventually embrace the faith. I think there was just a deep desire to be in a community that was trying to practice this idea of this notion of oneness, right? And in addition, something very profound happened. I read a book called, it was a compilation of writings, and it was called The Pupil of the Eye. Now, this was very profound for me because it was a collection of writings that basically talked about the spiritual distinction of people of African descent. And it was the first time that I had ever seen writings from the central figures of a religion that spoke directly to people of African descent. And that whole concept of black people as being the pupil of the eye, that light enters the eye through the pupil. So all that you see around you has to enter through the pupil in order for it to register to our consciousness, right? And that was very influential to me. It was empowering because it was like, wow, okay, people of African descent, not only is this notion of the oneness of mankind the core principle of the Baha'i Faith, and people are struggling to try and implement it, but also there are these writings that speak directly to me as a person of African descent, and that empower me in a way, affirm me. So for me, I could see the culmination of all of those years of studying and looking at these other writings, right, and searching for the truth, and then coming to the Baha'i Faith and seeing this notion of the oneness of mankind as the core principle, and also these teachings that affirmed who I was. And also I didn't have to let go of anything. Being a Baha'i, is an affirmation of your previous set of beliefs, right? It's an affirmation, it's a fulfillment, if you will, of your belief in Christ, of your belief in Muhammad, of your belief in Buddha, of your belief in Krishna. And that for me was incredibly liberating. And I think the last thing, if I speak candidly, is this respect and reverence for this idea of independent investigation of the truth. What I had learned through my religious experience up to that point was that fear quite often was a really powerful ingredient to maintaining control of a group of people or a populace. And I was an inquisitive person. I liked to read. I liked to search out answers for myself. And I just couldn't wrap my mind around a belief system that somehow undermined my curiosity or my ability to seek the truth. So when I read in the Baha'i Faith about this spiritual law, this spiritual principle of the independent investigation of truth, that was incredibly attractive to me, because it let me know that not only was I free to investigate the truth, it was a core principle of the faith